What's the deal, YouTube? It's your girl, Miss Honey. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. It is your girl, Miss Honey, here with a video for Tamar, Get Your Life. Season 1, Episode 3, Old and New Wounds. Listen, we got a lot to talk about, so let's just get into it. First of all, what we see first is a replay of just the highlights of episode 1 and episode 2. And I kind of made a note of some of the things that Tamar was saying that she lost. You know, when she was giving Mona that whisper cry, where she was like, I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost my family. I lost me. I lost who I was. I lost my career. And we're going to challenge that a little bit in this review, okay? We see that they are back after a couple of days of not filming, or it says back after a few days of not filming. Runs across the screen. We see where the production staff comes into the garage and they've all set up, but they find the house completely empty. So Tamar is not there and the house is completely empty, like vacant, like there's no stuff inside the house. At first I was like, well, do they mean completely empty like no one's there, or do they mean completely empty like it's devoid of stuff and things? And from what I could see, it looked like it was devoid of stuff and things. Well, Tamar's lawyer called and said they need to pack up everything and leave the premises, that they were no longer allowed to be on those premises. So apparently Tamar didn't purchase that house. Maybe that was a house that she was leasing, and she for some reason packed up and moved. It's never discussed. It's never brought up. Even when the crew goes outside after they've come out of the garage and they're loading up all of their things, and Tamar is texting the #1 producer, and she's saying, I don't have a voice, I can't talk right now, I feel like no one's listening to me. This is what she's doing, she's texting. I'm like, well, just stop. I mean, just stop, just cut it out. So she says that she's under doctor's orders not to talk, all of this. And like I said, she said, no one's listening to me. And she says the show means everything to me too. But why you ain't tell the people you was moving? Why you ain't tell the people you had to leave your house? Evidently, obviously, there's a lot going on that we don't see and that they're not allowed to talk about. Because no one through the rest of this episode mentions the fact that Tamar moved out of her house. Like, she moved out of the home. It's like, okay. So, I'm pretty sure she moved out of the house, because the house that we see them filming in looks like a completely different home. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she didn't move out of the house. Maybe there was just absolutely no one physically in the home. Maybe that's what it was. But why did you need a lawyer to tell them to leave the premises and all of that? Like, what was the point in all of that? I don't know. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Did she move out of the house, or was she just not in the house? Like, because we see, you know, it's some 2 days later, and Tamar is getting ready for a show that she's doing in her hometown, which I think she's from Baltimore, and she's doing a show in Maryland, the DC part of Maryland. She doesn't have the crew, the filming crew. She only has this one producer with one camera, and he's sort of shooting her as she is on her way to this venue. Before she leaves the house, the new house, I was like, how could she have just moved and she's so calm? Like, stuff would be everywhere. Like, I don't know, it just seemed odd. So maybe I'm wrong about her having moved everything out of the home, but it do seem like a different home to me, and it seemed like the home that they was in was empty. So she's saying that in this new home, she's talking to her her assistant. Now, this is one of the people that's a part of her entourage, but it's her assistant. And he seems like a pretty good assistant. He's giving her the lowdown of the show. She wants to run down the rehearsal, and she wants it to be 3 hours, and she wanted to know how much the rehearsal was going to cost her. I'm like, how much the rehearsal going to cost you? This your show. So, I don't know. And the rehearsal is supposed to be free, and then we get more theatrics. She's talking just fine, but she's supposed to be resting her voice, but she's talking. She's walking through the house, and she's telling him all the stuff that she wants to do the reason why she needs a 3-hour rehearsal. She comes across poop, and she hollers out at the poop, and then she hollers out for David to come and get the poop, even though she know he not in the house. And then she called him on the phone, and she talked to him about the dog pooping, and he said, I had the dog for a week, the dog never pooped. You do have to take dogs out routinely. But she tells him when he come back to the house now, this time, that he needs to get the dog and take the dog with him. So if she did move, she moved to another house by herself, just her and Logan. She didn't move in with him. They didn't move into a house together. So I'm just finding all of this odd. I'm finding all of this strange. I'm pointing it out to y'all. Maybe y'all can help me. But again, still talking. Get to DC. She's only got this one guy with her filming, and as she's talking to him about it's difficult. She hates being back in DC because, you know, her niece passed away, and she was like, I'd like to go see my brother while I'm here. We never get to see that. We don't know if she goes see her brother. We don't get to see any of that film happening, right? If it ever happened. The sound check was painful. She's not supposed to be talking. And when I say painful, I mean painful for us. She's not supposed to be talking, but she is talking and yelling. Goldie is there, and she's watching the whole process. And it's like the first time they ever rehearsed or something. It's coming across like the sound check people not doing what they supposed to be doing, and Tamar's got to do it all. Tamar's got to tell them what needs to be done. I find this hard to believe, but it's possible. Later, you know, she's like, I hope I keep my voice. I hope I don't lose my voice. Now, she's been using her voice this whole time. And she tell the producer in the car that she's not supposed to be talking. But, you know, he's asking her questions, and she's answering them. Anyway, the talking just don't stop. And Goldie, right before the show, Goldie does some relaxation, breathing type things with her. And she comes out, and everybody hold hands. She got people there visiting her that live in Baltimore, Lonnie B, and, you know, some other people. And she does the prayer. She does the prayer for her show before they go out with the singers and all, I mean the dancers and all of that. And you know, she's supposed to be saving her voice. She's been talking all this time. Now she does the prayer. Something happened with her and Goldie where her voice is free up now, and she can sing. She does the show. Everybody seems like they enjoy the show. She did 2 shows, if I'm not mistaken, and they both were sold out. So yeah. While Tamar is practicing, David lands in Maryland, and he meets up with her sister Tracy's husband Kevin. And apparently Tracy and Tamar have not talked in a year. Something happened and it blew up. We got to see a little flashback where Tracy was saying, you are a hard person to love. You are a hard person to love. I know exactly what she's talking about. It was all I could think about through this whole episode. How right Tracy really is, right? Tamar's a hard person to love. So she does the show. The show is great. Kevin comes and he talks with David, and I could see why David rubbed people the wrong way. Like, he's taking it upon himself to call her brother-in-law, meet up with her brother-in-law. All of this is unbeknownst to her. He invites the brother-in-law and Tracy out to the show. Now they don't come. They don't come one because that's not a resolve. Like, I'm supposed to come to your show and be backstage and all of this stuff and laughing and kikiing. We gonna all just move along with it, or we gonna talk about what's really going on between you and I. Why are you so hard for me to love? We can't talk about that right now because it's a show. Like, you taking pictures, all of this stuff. So they don't come to the show at all. Goldie is there. Goldie enjoyed it, but he was kind of trying to take this sort of lead and speak on Tamar's behalf about what she's supposed to get from her sister and the fact. And the dude was like, Kevin was like, well, y'all here in town, y'all didn't come over to the house. I don't know if he mean what we call the house. The house is my mama's house. Or if he meant y'all didn't come over to my house. But typically when you say y'all didn't come over to the house, you mean the house everybody gather at, right? Typically. So I don't know who house he was talking about. Well, David was like, there's a reason for that. I thought he was gonna say because the minute she landed, she went right into rehearsal and the show is tonight and we're gonna try to come tomorrow. But no, he was like, the reason why we didn't come is because what happened in Napa Valley. Family shouldn't behave that way. And you just overstepping your bounds, sir. You overstepping your bounds. You shouldn't be doing this without Tamar. Like, anyway. He asked Kevin what happened, and I wasn't sure if Kevin was repeating what happened in the beginning, why Tracy didn't join the Braxtons when they were all supposed to sing, like many years ago, or if he was talking about something recent. But anyway, he was saying basically she don't feel supported. So y'all can help me with that. Well, is this some residual from the fact that she was pregnant and didn't go out on tour with them, or they left her for the tour, or is this something recent? Is it ongoing? Like, what? I don't know. Anyway, I think the family has a clear understanding about what's going on with Tamar, and they feel like this is the best way to handle Tamar is not to deal with her at all, because later on we find out that she had Thanksgiving there at her house and nobody came. Well, you're trying to do it all on your turf. You're not trying to come hand in hand and say, listen, I've said some things, I've done some things, I apologize, that wasn't my intent, or my intent was this, but I didn't want, the fallout to be that, yada yada yada, whatever. Right? She says she get penalized. She feel like she get penalized for being Tamar. Well, I could see where that boisterous, over talking, in your face, like Tamar, I can see that the way it translates on stage is entertaining. In people's day-to-day life, you too much, Tamar. You too much. And you coming out of your mouth, and we're supposed to accept it like we're the audience, and we have this, adoration for you, and it is coming across in a way that makes us want to knock you down. Okay? And step on your hands. Anyway, so yeah, so David wants to try to fix all that. He invites him to the show. He's just out of order. I'm sure when Tracy got the information, she was like, I'm not going because Tamar didn't invite me. David did, and David ain't in charge of Jack. So then, like I said, we see where Tamar relaxes, and then she does the prayer, but like I said, talk the whole time. Tamar, after the show, she attributes her success to Goldie, the success with the show to Goldie, and David doesn't really like that. He's sitting there and he's listening, and he doesn't really care for that, because she's giving the accolades to Goldie. And so the next thing we see is where Tamar is getting her makeup on, and is at this real bear place where she kind of looks crazy a little bit. And she talking to David on the phone. Well, David tell her he done went to talk to his family and tell his family about Goldie and what she doing. And Tamar was like, well, why would you do that? Why would you do that without me? Why would you do that without benefit of having met Goldie or having seen the process? Oh, I didn't tell them my opinion. I can't have them on a show and I don't tell them what is going to happen, what's going down on the show. That wouldn't be fair to me. It's apples and oranges. You're conflating the two. Why are you talking about them being on the show? Is it going to be next week? We don't even know if they're gonna interact with Goldie. Like, this is what she's saying. Like, she's being very reasonable, and the more she talked, the more he kind of spin her around in this convoluted conversation. And after a while, it was dramatics where she was like whipping her head back and forth, like she don't want to get into the minutia of it. But you know, she got to a point where she was cutting him off and she was hanging up on him and that type of thing. So, you know, I mean, he's manipulative and he's controlling and he's trying to run her ish, but at the same time, Tamar is using her voice. She's speaking up. Something happens where I don't know if she feels like she's going to lose him, where she gets into this submissive place. We're going to see that a little bit later on. I don't know. But in this moment, she seems like she's holding her on. The producer gets the phone and he tries to talk to David. Goldie's in her room or somewhere, and she doesn't hear any of that. When she comes in and she sees Tamar is upset, she hasn't heard any of the stuff that has gone on over speakerphone, which him saying that his family's opinions are his own, are their own, and they are not sure, is she a witch? This is what he said, is she a witch? And he didn't say that he thought she was a witch. He's saying they're questioning, is she a witch, right? Because of the stuff he's gone back and told his family. She was like, well, why would you talk to them without me? And without benefit of having even seen what I do with Goldie. Like, you don't even fully understand it. And this is what the producer is telling her. But Goldie comes out after the witch comment, and she's dressed all in black, and she's got like a cowboy hat on. And she hugs Tamar and asks her, you seem upset, like what's going on? And she says, I didn't dream last night. And so Goldie was like, okay, well, why do you think that is? And then she says David. Now, she doesn't say that David has been chiding her and writing her about working with Goldie and the whole Dreamworks thing. She doesn't say that she had drinks last night before she went to bed. You know, that she's supposed to follow this process. No drinking, no sex, or anything the night before she wants to go into a heavy, deep, you know, dreaming state. She doesn't mention any of those things. She just mentions David being the case. So, you know, that's all we can assume. This is what Tamar is putting forward, is that David is the reason why she didn't dream last night. David doesn't really believe in the dream work that we're doing, and he's got some apprehensions about it. This is how she's explaining it. She doesn't say anything about witchcraft. When she gets off the phone with David, before Goldie walks in, she was like, he's got me like I'm a whole voodoo priestess, that type of thing. That's not what he said. I don't know about the whole conversation because I wasn't watching the whole conversation. They didn't show us the whole conversation. They just showed us snippets of it. And all of these snippets kind of make it seem like David is the reason for all of her stress and stuff. He's the reason that things aren't going well with Goldie. Like, she's not dreaming. He's the holdup for everything that's going on in her life. So, they try to change Goldie's clothes. While she's talking to Goldie about some of the things that David is expressing, like in terms of he considers it to be voodoo, or he's not sure if it's voodoo and all of that, they notice she's got on all black, her team and the producers, and they're like, okay, well, you know, we're talking about this, and at this moment you're dressed like witchy poo, and they want to just give her something to put on that's not as witchcrafty. Like, I just don't understand, considering David's not there now. The producer does get him to agree to come after he has called Tamar like for the umpteenth time. she sends the producer on out of there with David on the phone. Like, it's just chaos. He convinces David to come, the producer does, to come down and talk with Goldie, to meet with Goldie. And, this gives him a platform to be heard and to have yet another bit of say. So I personally think she could have said nothing at all about DreamWorks to David, and he wouldn't have been none the wiser. I think the way she came about telling him initially about not having sex for 45 days, like, that wasn't what she told you. Like, I can see Tamar's part in all of this. I can see that she doesn't do any real communication. It's just one performance after the next. Like, even when she's talking to him, it's just all of these things, all of these gestures, and all of that. When she's very clear and she's very focused and she's talking to him, it seems, like a regular conversation. And he seems to submit to that. He seems to submit to that, which is why he keeps calling back to explain himself and to try to make sure she's cool with him and she's all right with him and that she's not upset with him and that, that he hasn't gone too far with her, right? I can see that Tamar is not 100% the victim. I can see that Tamar does have a measure of control when she is focused, right? And she's specific. But I can see throughout the whole program, she has this poor conversation, even with the people setting up the staging and the lighting. Like, she's just hollering and all of this stuff. Like, there's supposed to be standards. Are they following these standards? Is there a reason why you're yelling and you shouldn't be talking? Like, is there a reason why you can't say, I can't have a dog right now because I am just too busy to have a dog and to be responsible for a dog? And then you move the dog forward. You give the dog away. If he wants a dog, keep the dog with him. Like, it's no reason for you to have these points of contention where you have to constantly be performing as opposed to communicating and saying, this isn't good for me, this isn't healthy for me, it's too many people in here. Like, it was just sending me this, the whole, the way everything was going, and the fact that everybody blames David instead of blaming Tamar or blames her family. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's blaming Tamar. Nobody's holding Tamar accountable. Every step along the way in this show, in this episode, we can see where all Tamar had to do was say, listen, I got to move out of this house. I cannot stay in this house. I don't have, the means to stay in this house. Also, I need a break from talking. Can we do something that doesn't necessarily involve talking? Like, so everybody's just trying to tiptoe around her and just figure out how they can make her happy. And no one's listening to me. You ain't saying jack. You ain't saying nothing, girl. So, when Tamar's talking to David on the phone and Goldie's sitting there and she's kind of trying to tell the producer, like, I'm not a witch. Like, this is not witchcraft. And Tamar's like, y'all have to take that talking out of here because what's not going to happen is he is not going to hear y'all talking in the background because that's disrespectful. Goldie gets up and leaves out. She gets to be quiet. She's quiet at first, and then as things tether off, she gets up and she walks on out. And she's upset. She's upset because they're making her change her clothes. They're giving her something of Tamar's to put on that's not all black. And, it's too big for her. And she outside, and she was like, I think I'm going to have to quit this show. And she got her little guy pulling on a little J. I don't know what it was, but we just saw a little smoke. I think I'm gonna have to quit this show. She had to cool down. She had to go out there and get her little medicine in her system so she can bring her energy level down. Like, she was crying and she was visibly shaking. So she go to Tamar and she kneel down in front of Tamar while Tamar's getting her face done. And she's like, Goldie, why are you upset? Like, completely oblivious to how they have treated her for the last hour and a half, 2 hours. Completely oblivious to the fact that she didn't change her clothes. Like, she's not even wearing the same thing. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But here's a person who never thinks about themselves, that always do for others, right? I'm always taking care of other people, right? But you don't even recognize it, how you wounded and hurt Goldie, right? And so Goldie was like, I just don't know. And she was like, you just misconstruing everything. You don't understand how it's really going. So let's just talk about it later. And she sent Goldie on out of the room. I was like, she completely dismissed her, completely disregarded her, and sent her out of the room. Like, it was very telling, very telling. And we see where Mona comes over, and Mona comes over, and she just really wants to talk, because she was like, the last 3 times we filmed with you, you shut us out, you shut us down, and we're supposed to be filming these moments. And I want to know, definitively from you, if this is what you're going to do. You've already had this conversation with her. You've already had this conversation with her, Mona. And she goes behind a closed door at some point, and she's talking to Tamar, and she's kind of siding with Tamar. Well, he never should have went and talked to his family without you. He needs to keep his mouth shut about what's going on, and yada, yada, yada. Just commiserating with Tamar about it, right? Okay. And it just, you got all these obstacles and people that are keeping you from being focused. Tamar keeping Tamar from being focused, right? Tamar's keeping Tamar from being focused, but nobody's telling her that. Then we see where she goes and sits down in the room and sits down on the sofa, and she's talking to Mona about her family, and she's telling them she had Thanksgiving dinner. She invited all of them. They didn't come. David's invited them to the show. Tracy and Kevin didn't come to the show. And she said, I'm not going to keep chasing them and begging them to love me. I feel like I'm being penalized for being Tamar. You being penalized for being a bitch, Tamar. For being too much, for coming out your mouth real slick like, for over talking, for saying hurtful things. That's what you're being penalized for. You don't have to chase them, and they not gonna chase you. You being shut out. That's what you're being. No one's gonna allow you to come in and run roughshod over the show, over the family, over the group, over the conversation, over the dinner, over the function. Nobody's gonna allow you to come in and run the Tamar show everywhere you go. That's what you're experiencing. But when she's telling it as if she has to do all the work to be their sibling. No, you don't. You're being told consistently you're a hard person to love. Kevin told you in one of the clips, you're harsh sometimes. You don't listen. I'm done with it. Okay, that's fine. But when you retell it to people, you're telling it as though you're putting in all the work, you're doing all the chasing, you're showing all the love, and it's not being reciprocated. And that is a misleading lie. That is a misleading lie. It is not true. It is not true. And maybe the mental health issue comes in with the fact that she doesn't see it. Maybe the mental health piece comes in with the fact that she doesn't know how to rightly divide and see where her part is. I don't know. But where I come from, they call it being stubborn and being hard-headed and being willful. But nowadays, everything is a mental breakdown, right? Is a mental defect. I don't agree with that. And I'm just really trying to point out to you guys, without offending anyone, all the steps along the way where she is not only allowing things to go left, but she's facilitating it in lying, in over dramatizing, in retelling the story completely differently than how it really happened. Like, you do all of this because you can't talk, even though you're talking the whole time, and you're stressing people out and hollering at people and yelling at people. You've had them shut all of the baggage down. That's what she's calling the crew, the baggage. You signed up for this. You signed up for the baggage. But you've made them change everything in order to accommodate you. And look, lo and behold, you singing, but you're going to attribute that to Goldie, not the fact that you've been faking the funk all along. David shouldn't have told his family the way he shouldn't have done the things that he did, but you gave him all the tools he needed to intervene on this situation as poorly as he did. That's my opinion. Her and Mona moved to the sofa. They're talking about the family. She's talking about she's chasing them. She's not going to beg them to love her, all of this stuff. They want to bring Goldie in. They bring Goldie in. I don't know if she spoke to Goldie off camera or she spoke to Goldie on camera and they didn't show it. But Goldie comes in the room and she sits down and she kind of turns her back a little bit to Goldie. She doesn't really acknowledge Goldie. She doesn't apologize to Goldie for everything that went on. The fact that they never got a chance to do an exercise, to work through a process. We never see any of that on camera. I don't know if it was done, but it appeared to me and to us that she was dismissing Goldie. She was dismissing Goldie's feelings, and she was dismissing some of the concerns that Goldie had, and really treating her as though she didn't matter. Like she was the plumber or the baker, the butcher, like, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody working in her house, not someone she's supposed to love and have so much admiration for. Like, Tamar is a handful. She's a handful. And Goldie says, much like what Mona said, is that Tamar wants to be better and she wants to do better, but she's got all these outside things that are distracting her and keeping her from focus. Tamar is distracting herself. Tamar is keeping herself from being focused. Tamar is her biggest obstacle. It's not David. David is a manipulator and he is controlling and he's slick as boiled okra. Okay? Definitely. I believe that. But I believe it's Tamar that's the problem. Tamar is always in Tamar's way. Okay? And this episode proves it that much further. Like, it's never ever Tamar's fault. No one is presenting it to Tamar like it's her fault, because they know the minute they say, could you be responsible for some of the things that are going on, some of the chaos and the distractions that's going on in your life, could you be responsible? Then she gonna go off. She gonna go off, and y'all, we gonna get what Tracy gets, and Tony and Tawanda and the rest of them get, and what Vince got. Okay, so Mona reiterates why they're doing the show. She wants Tamar to show all of this stuff and to move it through that filter, that television filter. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree that that's helpful. It seems like to me the cameras and the production and stuff being there is adding to her distraction and not getting her ish together. Okay, Goldie wants her to put it all into the art, but there's so much going on around her that don't have nothing to do with the art. Right? And a lot of that is something that Tamar signed up for. It's something that Tamar wants. You know, she wants to always perform. Like, the music to me is in the background of things. Like, it is, you know, white noise. What she really want to do is she want to perform. She want to be a performer. And so David's got a birthday party coming up. She invited everybody. She didn't reach out to Tracy. I don't know why she would think Tracy would come if she didn't even invite her to come, right? They haven't spoken in like a year. We see where, like I said, Tamar makes it seem like she's chasing her family and they're rejecting her. I just think it's so misleading. You're continually being manipulative in your own way. That's why I say David and Tamar aren't so far apart. I think she's just more versed at it, and she's a female, so she's got a little bit more leeway to play with, like a little bit more room to play than he does. In terms of the manipulation game, she don't have to be quite as slick as he is, but she's manipulative. The way you putting your family out here, like they just is so much behind it, and how she's always, you know, try to approach and be good and be kind, and they rejecting her. Like, it's bull crap. It's misleading, and it's not right. So Mona's, like I said, just trying to get her to consent to putting it all on camera. They bring Goldie in and they say, well, Goldie, we're going to take a different approach instead of approaching it from this personal standpoint. So once again, we are putting Tamar's career music career to the side, and we are focusing on her personal life, okay, which is gonna drag all the Braxtons in, and drag all the, you know, the mess of other people's lives in. And we, once again, we're not taking the magnifying glass and really focusing on what's going on with Tamar. And this ultimately, I think, is what Tamar wants. This is what I think Tamar wants. You know, and this is how the episode ends. I'm so frustrated with how people are supporting her bullshit. Shout out to Random TV Reviews. I am frustrated with how she is allowed to just go unchecked. Everybody is treated like servants and staff. How are you doing something for everybody else? I'm always helping everybody else. I'm always there for everybody else, but they not here for me. Like, you think people supposed to wait on you hand and foot? They supposed to do everything for you. All you supposed to do is show up and sing, or show up and perform, and show up and entertain, and everything outside of that, you don't want to get involved in it at all. You don't want to be burdened with it. The way you overlooked Goldie and her feelings and didn't even stop, at least on camera, to acknowledge them as a professional, to console. I know it's in you because you were very nice to your assistant, but Goldie didn't matter. Goldie does not matter. And she was telling the producer was saying, well, you know, he was trying to get her to see that David, you know, was causing some of the contention. And she was like, no. She was like, well, maybe if he sees you guys together. She was like, well, I can't really talk to him about anything right now because we about to have a serious argument. Like, it's like arguing with a brick wall. Whether you talking to him or you talking to her. There's no conceding. There's no humility that says I was wrong, that I went too far, that I said too much, I misspoke. We don't see that. We don't see any of that. If it's present, it's not shown to us. Maybe this was ultimately their whole complaint, was that they were being shown in this unfavorable light. But listen, if you ain't got but a little bit of light that's going to show for just a little bit of the day, you make sure that's the brightest and the best light ever. Every time they shine a light on Tamar, it's barking. It's victimhood. It's hollering at people. It's being demonstrative and over talking and being hurtful. You know, being curt, being short, being dismissive. If all you show us are these things, how are we supposed to relate to you as something different? I don't get it. Y'all tell me what you think. Y'all put it down below. And until next time, honeybees, mwah, mwah, mwah. I holla.